What's up, everybody? Michael Silva here to do some technical analysis on PayPal. Ticker symbol PYPL. Now, PayPal comes from the technology sector. It has been on this monster tear. We're going to be looking at multiple time frames, kind of plotting out good areas to potentially buy into PayPal. Let's see kind of its relative strength in the technology sector. We're going to look at the Nasdaq as well. This is really to help us get a good broad picture as to where PayPal might be headed next. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, everybody, welcome back. The first chart that we're going to look at should look familiar if you've been following me on my channel. This is the technology sector relative to the SPY. The reason why I'm showing you this is because recently we've been having this just monster run up, which basically tells us the higher this goes, it means technology is an outperforming sector relative to the SPY, which is a broad market index. And then lately, as of August, we've been really going sideways to down. However, since November, we're starting to see another uptick. Now, this is kind of flagging out. Maybe we continue to see relative strength build, but I want to just point out the RSI has kind of been dying off here. And then we also have the MACD that looks like it's on this upturning curse right here. So it looks like it might cross over very soon, which could bring a lot more strength into the technology sector. So we have to be mindful of that. The better technology sector does, the better charts like PayPal will play out. PayPal play out. Yeah, there we go. Now let's look at the Nasdaq 100. Now, the Nasdaq's important to watch too. You can look at the composite, you can look at the Nasdaq 100, but the reason why is because, well, PayPal's in the Nasdaq. So what can we do by just seeing this strength? Well, first off, we have a symmetrical triangle that the Nasdaq recently broke out of. I talk about this on my daily market briefs. The MACD did just cross above, but it's been relatively flat. So this is not a bad sign so far. We're making new highs, negative divergence. This is the weekly time frame, mind you. So if the technology sector gets a little too ahead of itself for Nasdaq 100, we might be able to see some sort of a pullback. Now, I've been saying that the Nasdaq 100 is one of those indices that I would personally look for hedging long on. So if we get some gap fills beneath us, I would like to play those bounces because the market has been just highly liquid due to the Federal Reserve. And then what we can potentially see is these gaps filled or, quick pullbacks, and then you can see rips continuing to make new highs. So pay very close attention to, I would say, the 20-week moving average. This one is that green line right here. You can see recently we pulled back to it once, bounced from it, pulled back to it twice, bounced from it. Now we're kind of moving above this symmetrical triangle. So if we get a pullback here, I would be looking at stocks like PayPal or various other technology stocks to potentially buy long into to basically buy the dip. That would make sense to me. Now let's start looking closer into PayPal. Let's first look at the monthly time frame. I only pointed out a couple horizontal lines here. We've been seeing some monster strength come in since that March pullback. We had a horizontal trend line here that was resistance back in 2019, and it acted as resistance in late 2019 and 2020, and then we finally broke above it. Once we broke above it, it then becomes a level of support, but we didn't hardly even backtest it. We just shot right up. Then we saw more resistance right here at this next horizontal line, and now we're making another break above it. Two things I want to point out. One, we stayed connected to the 5 EMA, but if we were up here by the start of next month, we're going to be disconnected from the 5 EMA. The 5 EMA is one of the more frequently tagged moving averages. You can get disconnected if for periods at a time, but I would always look for reconnects. Now, the 5 period moving average, the 5 EMA, is sloping up into this breakout area. So it's very typical to potentially see pullbacks and then on breakouts and then continuations of moves. So like I was saying previously on the Nasdaq and the technology sector, relative strength. If we start pulling back, I'd be looking at around 220 or just above that. The 5 EMA right now is at 209. So yeah, right around 220. If we pull back, we might see a bounce and continuation from there. Make sure you're having your stop losses in place. RSI is overbought, but it's, that can hold like that for various long periods of time. And we have the PPO, the price percentage oscillator, also just moving up, very solid right there. We're also extended above the upper monthly Bollinger Band, and sometimes when things get overextended, we see little pullbacks, but things can also stay overextended for quite some period of time. So on the monthly time frame, I'd be looking at about 220 as far as a buy the dip opportunity. And then on the weekly time frame, just look at this big bull flag right here on the weekly time frame. We crossed over on the PPO. That's a good sign. That's a bullish cross, and we're starting to see some strength move in. We're doing so a new high on a negative divergence. We're disconnected from the 5 EMA, and we're extended above the upper Bollinger Band. Hey, if this is actually a true bull flag and we see a continuation move, we might get a back test. Okay, it's not necessarily true, but that's why I've been saying about 220. So we come test that area, and then you can have a stop loss underneath it. And you can even look at the 20 period moving average on the weekly time frame to potentially even go longer. Now, I'll zoom in even more so you can see some target areas. But if this is a true bull flag breakout, we can head a lot higher with this stock. All right, let's look at the daily time frame. We're zooming in a little bit more. First off, RSI is overbought. We have a negative divergence on the money flow index. So that means we're making new highs while the money's kind of flowing out here. It's important to take note of that. Now you can see resistance, resistance. We broke out. Took a little while right there, but we ended up really pushing higher from, mid-December to where we are right now. So are we a little ahead of ourselves on this daily move? It's possibly. Sometimes when things get these really aggressive moves to the upside, they need a 1, consolidate, or 2, they pull back, which is healthy, and then you see it rip higher. Okay, bull context overall. Okay, 20 period sloping way up, 50 sloping up, 200 period sloping up. It's going to take a big, big bear to kill this momentum. So where can we look for potential pullback opportunities? My personal opinion is I would not be buying at 245 right here just because this move was super aggressive. I want more tactical spots to move into. And, if that's the case, if it's too high up here and you're kind of FOMOing out a little bit, you got to look for other opportunities in the market so you can catch moves like this. You don't want to get in here and then it pull back on you and then you get stuck and then it eventually makes its new high. So I'm marking this little pink box down here as a potential opportunity to buy the dip. Now it's a pretty wide range. We're looking at basically 215 to around 225. The reason why is because price action's up here. So the 50 period is going to continue to slope up as price action remains above. And you have the 20 period that's it's getting pretty steep right now. So we might get a reconnect with the 20. You can see it bounce from it here, bounce from the 20 and the 50 right here. And then we also gapped above and it bounced twice and then got rejected. So I think that this area would make sense on a pullback to go long if you want to get, a better entry point for PayPal. Then the last thing I want to point out is this cup and handle pattern on the 240-minute time frame. This is interesting to me. So we have this cup, we have this handle, now we have a breakout. This is very bullish. But what I want to point out here is look at the MACD. We're starting to cross over a little bit, and the RSI is pretty overbought. So I marked out target 1, target 2. Notice how it's between the 20 period and the 50 period moving average, and then we have this one down here by the 20. This to me would be completely fine to get a reconnect down here and then move higher, and even down here to 200 period the 200 period moving average. That would also make sense. The longer the price action stays above here, the higher the 200 period moving average will move, and the 50 and the 20. All right, so take note of that, because as time progresses and moves forward, these moving averages will move higher as long as the price action's above. So you got to constantly kind of, depending on when you're watching this, make sure that the targets correlate to that. If it comes down to target 1, it acted as resistance right here, then we broke out and we had the 50 period there, the 20 period, so that would make sense to me to see a bounce. And then if it continues like a sharp move to the downside where the Nasdaq wants to correct back to that breakout of the symmetrical triangle, this would make more sense to me down here around 200. After that point, we would have to reconsider, if it broke down even further, reconsider where the next area of support could be, because it could be all the way down here to 180 to 175. All right, everybody, so just to kind of conclude everything right now, PayPal, very strong stock, a little overextended at where current levels are. So my personal opinion, I wouldn't be buying into it right here. I'd be waiting for pullbacks in those specific areas that I was talking about. If you have any recommendations, go ahead and leave them in the comment section to run an analysis on. This one right here was a viewer recommended analysis. And everyone have a happy holidays, because we are coming up to the end of the year here. So see you later.